Hello and welcome to Sociology. Today we're going to talk about gender socialization, gender and mass media, and gender and body culture. So if we look at our first image today, we can see that although this is a couple years old, this really pertains to how we continue to reinforce gender ideology and gender roles, right? This is very applicable to the current marketing of children's toys and children's media today, creating this idea that boys have trucks and girls have dolls. We continue to see, even within social media today, that people are very vocal about their distaste or dislike or concern in regards to buying boys' dolls and dresses and things of that nature that we have associated with female-identified bodies because of the way our society has constructed these cultural scripts around gender. So socialization and gender roles. Socialization plays an especially important part in determining what children believe to be acceptable behaviors from members of their own sex. People who diverge significantly from expected gender roles are often met with resistance from individuals and from the social system. Socialization and gender roles continued. We're going to look at the same sources of socialization that influence people of other areas of their lives. Again, we're going back to these agents of socialization of family, schools, religion, mass media, peer groups. These also affect the socialization of gender roles. So when we talked about gender, when we were talking about culture and society are reflective of each other. And so when we look at how we as a culture start to enforce these cultural scripts or these gender stereotypes or roles, we see that this starts again, much before birth, and we're revisiting this idea now. We have gender reveal parties, even though gender has nothing to do with your sexual organs. Remember that sex organs, sexuality, who you're attracted to, gender, your performance of gender are all very different. We're going to go more in depth about gender in a second. But we think about this begins at birth. So research shows that infants are viewed differently depending on their future roles and expectations, and infants respond differently to those very early variations of treatment or socialization. So when we say things like, be tough, don't throw like a girl, boys aren't supposed to cry, or we tell little girls that they need to cook and clean, and that's what their main role is. And we see this, we've talked about this in previous classes, we see this again here. So then let's expand our conversation when we talk about gender socialization in infancy to gender role socialization in early childhood and adolescence. So children continue to learn these gender role behaviors in nursery or elementary school. Statistics identify that teachers spend more time with boys, that teachers evaluate boys differently from girls. Schools teach gender roles in indirect ways, like elementary school teachers usually are female, high school teachers are frequently male, and principals and other top administrators are mostly male. Schools rarely even legitimate non-binary students. So we see this when we are told when we are in elementary school, when we are in K through 12 education, that girls go to the boys, or girls go to the girls' room, boys go to the boys' room. We have girls' locker rooms, boys' locker rooms. We have female maturation assemblies, we have male maturation assemblies. So we understand that this dichotomy that there are only two genders, male and female, which is inherently problematic. And then we also see that they are fundamentally different, which is, again, not true. We also see that when teachers speak or interact with students, if it's a male-identified body, they often identify their value through their achievements. So, an example, great job on the math test, Ron, or really good work on your homework, Steve. But then when we see when teachers interact or communicate with female-identified bodies, it's almost always associated with their aesthetics. I really like your hair today, Sally, or nice dress, Sheena. So we can see how all of these are associated with what your value is associated with. We also see that when students are raising their hands to answer questions, male-identified students are called on much more frequently. Female-identified students, when responding to prompts or questions, even when their answer is correct, it is often associated back to a male body. An example, Really great job, Chantel, but we can see how that goes back to what Tim said. So again, it is reverting their own achievements and constructions towards a male body again. So devaluating or devaluing her or their particular achievements and efforts in class. So children play mainly in same-sex groups, and this contributes to their socialization. So I want you to think about, why would children play in the same-sex groups? We see this as a continuation of the gender role socialization, that we subconsciously and subtly reinforce these norms to students and children that they are supposed to be playing with their same kind. So this also results in playing in these same-sex groups, that girls are socialized to act like girls and boys are socialized to act like boys. And what we mean by this is that they're socialized to believe in these very narrow, stereotypical gender role ideologies. And then they use a lot of different means to police this in each other, as well as the adults and older children around them police this as well. In early group socializations, girls learn to act demurely, to speak softly, whereas boys learn to act competitively and speak assertively. This is also when male-identified bodies are conditioned or socialized into speaking with authority and confidence, to interrupt, to assume that they have a firm grasp of something when they may or may not. And then female-identified bodies are taught to take up as little space as possible by crossing their legs, by holding their hands in their lap, by not interrupting, by constantly questioning themselves if they're right or if what they know is to be authentic. So next we're going to move into mass media and socialization of genders. If you are as shocked and turned off by this advertisement, it was a real advertisement by Ford. It was pulled very quickly due to social response, but it still was out there, and it was out there for a minute. But we can see that this reinforces, 1, the idea of rape culture, 2, that women are property, and 3, that they are not a valuable member of society or treated as humans. We can see that the woman in front is hogtied, that they all have ball gags, and then the tag is "Leave your worries behind." So this is continuing to further perpetuate the idea that women have no agency, that male-identified bodies have control and have ownership of all women's bodies at all times, as well as we see the woman in the front is a police officer, and that is again devaluing or identifying that females cannot be police officers or be taken seriously as authority. So this next portion, we're going to look at how from early childhood on, Americans spend thousands of hours watching television, which has a strong tendency to portray gender role stereotypes. A strong tendency, I feel like, is a bit of an understatement. But we can look at music videos, for instance, show men acting rough, tough, and violent while their women follow or even crawl after them, waiting, competing, or even suffering for their attention. So we can see J-Lo and Pitbull. We can see under the lower left-hand side a artist with not even the females' faces in the photo, merely their behinds. And then in the middle is Tough Guys 2, which is an amazing documentary looking at violence, manhood, and American culture that you are more than welcome to watch for an extra credit. I believe it is incredibly important. Okay, so let's step into body culture. So body culture is how media shapes our thoughts and ideas about beauty, eating, and image. So over the past 4 decades, the prevalence of eating disorders has doubled. During the same time, mass media has more than ever presented thinner and thinner ideals of bodies, especially females. Movies that depict the idea of beauty, weight, body image, etc. Right? So we have Black Swan, America the Beautiful, Eat, Pray, Love, Real Women Have Curves, Shallow Hal, Bridget Jones' Diary. So media figures provide male image roles for the majority of men and women under 40 instead of family members. So for men, we see things like The Rock. We have 300, if anybody saw that. as an uncomfortable film that was. For women, we have the Olsen twins, we have Iggy Azalea, we have Miley Cyrus, and those are in films. When we look to the fashion industry, it is much, much more severe. Sorry about that. So researchers have reported that 3/4 of females in comedy actors are underweight, and only 1 in 20 have an above average size. So we have Madrid and now France have banned ultra-thin models from the runway, but over 20 years ago, the average model weighed 8% less than the average woman. Today, models weigh 23% less than the average woman. Let's look at some advertising. So researchers generating a computer model of woman with Barbie doll proportions have this example, right? So her back would be too weak to support the weight of her upper body, and her body would be too narrow to contain more than half of a liver and a few centimeters of bowel. A real woman built this way would suffer from chronic diarrhea and eventually die from malnutrition. Except for the fact that 99% of girls under the age of 10 own a Barbie doll and are utilizing that as a reference for whom they should be and how they would gain value. So with models and advertising, the average U.S. woman is about 5'4" and weighs 140 pounds, roughly. In contrast, the average U.S. model is 5'11" and weighs 117 pounds. So the body type portrayed in advertising possesses only 5% of American females. We also see that the study found that 25% of Playboy centerfolds meet the criteria for anorexia. Following the viewing of images of fashion models, 7 out of 10 women feel more depressed and angrier than prior to viewing these images. What's also incredibly disturbing is how this influences socialization and identity for young females. 69% of 5th to 12th grade girls reported that magazine pictures influence their idea of the perfect body shape. 1 in every 3 articles in leading teen girl magazines also include a focus on appearance, and most of the advertisements used to appeal to sell some beauty product. Heartbreakingly, 47% of 5th to 12th grade girls reported wanting to lose weight. 5th to 12th grade girls. In television, 1 out of 4 TV commercials send out some sort of message about attractiveness. 80% of women who answered a People magazine survey responded that images of women on television and in the movies make them feel insecure. Those who watch television at least 3 nights a week are 50% more likely than non-viewers to feel overweight. 15% of viewers admit to vomiting to lose weight, and 2/3 of viewers diet as a result of the image they saw. So then 30% of women choose an ideal body shape that is 20% underweight. Additionally, 44% of women choose an ideal body shape that is 10% underweight. 86% of those with eating disorders report that by the onset by the age of 20, and 95% of those with eating disorders are between ages 12 and 15. Now look at these little people. 80% of 13-year-olds have attempted to lose weight. 11% of high school students may have a diagnosable eating disorder. 80% of 13-year-olds have attempted to lose weight. 11% of high school students have a diagnosable eating disorder. And anorexia is the 3rd most chronic illness among adolescents. 42% of 1st to 3rd grade girls want to be thinner. What? 1st to 3rd grade girls? 81% of 10-year-olds are afraid of being fat, and 51% of 9 and 10-year-old girls stated they felt better about themselves when they were adhering to a diet. So next time we're going to look at hegemonic masculinity, but I want you to think about how media has constructed these ideas of body image, value, and gender. See you next time.